The park was quiet that afternoon, almost too quiet, except for the soft hum of children, playing in the distance and the rustle of leaves in the chilly January wind. He felt a sudden weight on his lap before he even realized what was happening. Startled, he looked down, and there she was, pressed against him in a desperate attempt to hide, her eyes wide and anxious, whispering something he couldn't fully catch. His heart raced. Why was she here? Who was she hiding from? And why did she choose him? Of all people, to trust in that vulnerable, almost frightening moment? There was tension in the air, but also something strange and unspoken, a mix of fear and fragile trust that left him frozen, wondering if he should speak or just let the moment exist for a heartbeat longer. It was the kind of moment that changes everything, but he couldn't see how yet. Before I continue, take a moment to subscribe to Kindness Tales. We share heartfelt stories that remind us of the goodness in the world. So if you like what you're about to hear, hit subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Stories like these feel even better when they're shared. He had been used to quiet moments in the park with his son, little traditions that helped them both breathe through the chaos of a single-parent life. Mornings started early, juggling work calls while making pancakes, lunchboxes and smiles. Afternoons were reserved for the swings, slides, and sometimes just wandering along the paths, letting the winter air clear the heaviness that often clung to his small apartment. He had routines that made life manageable, routines that were comforting precisely because they didn't demand more than he could give. But that day, the rhythm of his ordinary life shattered without warning. She had been someone he saw almost every day at work, a figure who always carried herself with quiet elegance, a gentle smile that seemed to calm everyone she interacted with. He respected her from afar, admired her professional dedication, but never expected to be part of her private world. Until that day, he didn't know much about her life beyond the office walls. He didn't know about the ex who haunted her, who seemed determined to make her feel small, to chase her until there was nowhere left to hide. He certainly didn't expect to find himself the one holding her, steadying her in the middle of a busy park, as though their connection had been waiting, unnoticed, for years to reveal itself. She whispered his name softly, almost apologetically, as if intruding on him was a mistake she couldn't undo. He could feel the tension in her body, her breath uneven, her hands trembling slightly. He tried to speak, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he simply said, "Easy, I've got you." There was no hesitation in his voice, no judgment, just a quiet steadiness that seemed to anchor her trembling frame. It was the first real conversation they'd ever had outside office walls, but it carried a depth neither of them could ignore. In that moment, the park became a different place entirely, a small sanctuary where two strangers, or maybe more accurately, two acquaintances who barely knew each other, shared an unspoken trust that felt heavier than anything either had experienced in months. He could hear the distant laughter of his son playing on the swings, a sound that usually filled him with joy, but now it was almost surreal. Like a soundtrack to an intense scene he wasn't sure how to navigate. She leaned into him slightly, as if drawing strength from his calm presence. He noticed the small details, the way her coat was slightly damp from the winter drizzle, the nervous tap of her foot against the grass, the subtle tremor in her hands, and felt a surge of protective instinct he didn't realize he had. This wasn't just about being kind or polite. It was about being human, about recognizing when someone needed help and answering without question. For the next few minutes they stayed like that, silent but not uncomfortable. The world moved around them, joggers passing, children running with sticky mittens, parents chasing after their laughter. But in that little bubble, time slowed. He could feel her tension gradually release, like the invisible weight of fear lifting fraction by fraction. He tried to make small talk, asking if she was okay, if she needed him to call someone, if there was a way he could help beyond just being a quiet presence. She shook her head, managing a weak, grateful smile, and whispered, "Thank you. I didn't know where else to go." It wasn't long before the ex appeared, a dark figure at the edge of the playground, scanning, searching, unaware of the connection that had just formed. He felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He wanted to confront the situation, but he knew confrontation wasn't always the answer, especially when safety was the priority. Instead, he focused on creating space, using his presence as a shield without even thinking about it. He adjusted slightly, subtly positioning himself between her and the approaching danger, and she seemed to understand the gesture immediately, leaning closer, trusting him completely without needing to articulate why. It was the kind of trust that leaves a lasting mark, an imprint of human kindness that doesn't demand acknowledgement or repayment. Eventually, they managed to move away from the area, a quiet, careful retreat that felt like an unspoken victory. She murmured thanks again, a little more confidently this time, and he felt a warmth spread through him, a deep satisfaction that came from simply being there when someone needed a steady hand. A calm voice, a small act that felt monumental in the moment. They walked a few more steps together, talking quietly, sharing details of ordinary lives, work stress, parenting errands, the small victories and disappointments that make life both exhausting and beautiful. She laughed lightly at a story about his son insisting that pancakes should be served upside down, and he realized that connection could grow from even the briefest moments of shared humanity. Over the next weeks, a tentative friendship blossomed. They met for coffee after work sometimes, exchanged texts about everything, from the latest office drama to tips on surviving the winter with kids, and discovered that even amidst the pressures of work and personal life, small gestures mattered more than they realized. He offered help without asking for anything in return, and she began to respond in kind, small tokens of trust and companionship that slowly bridged the gap between strangers and friends. The incident in the park became a shared memory, a reminder that sometimes kindness doesn't come from grand gestures or heroic actions, but from simply showing up when someone is vulnerable. One afternoon he found himself reflecting on how that single act, letting her sit on his lap when she needed it, staying calm while the world felt chaotic, had changed the trajectory of both their lives. It wasn't just about safety, it was about recognition, the acknowledgement that we all carry, fears and burdens that sometimes we can't face alone. And when someone offers us steadiness, a calm presence, without expecting anything back, it has a ripple effect far beyond the immediate moment. He realized that kindness has a kind of gravity, pulling people together in ways that logic and planning never could. Their friendship grew steadily, marked by small acts of caring that often went unnoticed by the world, but were monumental to them. He helped her with work projects, listened when she needed to vent, and offered his son as a cheerful distraction when she felt overwhelmed. She, in turn, brought laughter and lightness to his routine, shared stories that reminded him of the beauty of simple joys, and offered genuine appreciation in moments that made him feel seen in ways that no paycheck or praise ever could. It was a quiet partnership of human connection, built on the foundation of that one extraordinary day in the park, when fear and uncertainty met calm and compassion, creating something neither of them expected, but both desperately needed. There were challenges, of course. Life didn't suddenly become easy. Balancing work, parenting, and the unpredictable tides of personal life still brought stress. But the presence of someone who understood the small, meaningful impact of everyday kindness transformed ordinary moments into something richer, something full of hope. They laughed over spilled coffee, shared late-night walks to decompress from long days, and celebrated tiny victories together. His son mastering a new skill, a successful presentation at work, even just the comfort of knowing someone had their back. Each gesture, each act of listening, each moment of quiet understanding strengthened the invisible threads that connected them, threads woven with empathy, patience, and genuine care. By the time spring rolled around, what started as a fleeting, almost accidental connection had blossomed into a lasting bond. He watched her from across the office one day, smiling at a colleague, and felt a quiet pride not in possession or achievement, but in having been part of a moment that had allowed someone else to feel safe, valued and supported. That afternoon in the park had seemed insignificant at the time, almost surreal, yet it carried within it the power to change how they saw each other, themselves and the small, quiet ways kindness can reshape our world. Looking back, he realized that life is full of unexpected encounters, moments when the ordinary collides with the extraordinary in ways we never anticipate. A simple choice to offer calm instead of judgment, presence instead of distance, can ripple outward, touching lives in ways that stay with us far longer than we imagine. It reminded him that courage isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's the willingness to be there when someone needs you most, even if that someone is a stranger, even if the circumstances are awkward or inconvenient. That willingness carries a kind of magic, subtle but powerful, that can turn fear into trust, loneliness into companionship, and ordinary days into moments we carry with us forever. Kindness isn't just about big heroic gestures. It's in the small, human moments, the reassurance of a whisper, the steadying hand, the decision to stay present when the world feels like it's closing in. That afternoon in the park reminded him, and reminds all of us, that the simplest acts can have the deepest impact. We may never know the full story of how our small deeds ripple through the lives of others, but that doesn't make them any less powerful. In the end, it's the presence, the care, the willingness to show up that matters most. So next time you see someone struggling, offer your calm, your patience, your kindness. You might just become the reason someone feels safe, valued, or understood in a way they never expected. You might just become the reason someone feels safe, valued, or understood in a way they never expected. And in sharing those stories, in lifting up the quiet heroes in everyday life, we remind each other that kindness is contagious, hope is alive, and connection is always possible. If this story moved you, share your own experiences of kindness in the comments. Let's keep this chain of human goodness going, one small act at a time, and remember that sometimes being there for someone is the greatest gift of all.